All right, hey everybody, here we are again, Thursday night, Education of a Weaponized Man podcast, specifically doing the strategy session. I have Coach Dustin, Coach Brad back with me. As you can see, we have a little bit of a new look to the podcast tonight, getting fancy. I hope everybody likes it, but okay, we got a great topic tonight. We're going to jump in, we're going to hit our intro. I'll be back in 60 seconds, and I will let you know what we're talking about tonight. Stick with us, it's going to be good. Many people understand that they can at any time become the target of a violent criminal assault. These same people know that they have a life, family, and property worth defending. Criminals understand that violence is its own language. Violence is not the sport of competition. Violence is not the art of fighting. Violence is about one thing: destruction. There are those who believe that violence, even in self-defense, is morally wrong. Then there are good people like you who know that defending yourself, family, and others, as well as your property, is not only a personal right, but a duty within a civilized society. Understand, violent assaults are won before they occur. People who learn strategy survive. People who do not will not. For those brave people who believe life is precious and worth defending, welcome to the Education of a Weaponized Man podcast. All right, everybody, we are back. Okay, here we are. What we're going to talk about tonight, listen, don't fuck with me. You don't want to fuck with me. Don't fuck with me. You don't fucking know who I am. Do you know who I am? Tonight we're going to talk about the fucking warning, okay? Why a warning? Because what we're really going to talk about is we're going to talk about the fight-flight dichotomy, okay? This bothers me. And it only bothers me because it's such an oversimplification. The fight-or-flight system. Everybody talks about, your body prepares you to fight or prepares you to flee. And so separate that for a second, because that's not the full dichotomy. It is not just fight-flight, okay? But let's go back, because I talked about this warning. You don't want to fuck with me. Do you fucking know who I am? You know what I mean? You don't want a fucking problem with me, man, because I will fucking end you. I will kill you, okay? What is the warning? Why do people warn the other? Like, why is somebody warning somebody, right? All of these, first and foremost, when you have a warning, is an indicator that you're dealing with, 9 out of 10 times, antisocial aggression. Okay, what do you mean? Antisocial aggression. If somebody is warning you, listen, you better not fuck with me, we have to ask ourselves, why are they warning us? Okay, why would somebody warn you? And then, again, look on the other side, fight-flight. Okay, so let me set it up this way, because Brad has a story that we'll get him to share, and it's going to tie into this in a little bit, but I want to kind of set some groundwork so everybody understands it. Why it bothers me when I hear people say the fight-flight model, like, it's fight or flee. That's what your body prepares you. They say it as if, like, if you're a fucking man, you prepare to fight. If you're a fucking pussy, you prepare to flee. Like, that's what your body does, man. And it's not even the whole dichotomy. And it's so far from the fucking truth. It's so inaccurate. But when I reveal the next two, right? Because the dichotomy of the fight-flight is not true, but it's half of it. Okay, so let's break it. As a matter of fact, why don't you guys do it for me? Okay, so there is fight, there's flee, so fight or flight, and then there is, Dustin, why don't you give me the third one?
Posture.
There's posture. Fight, flee, or fight, flight, posture, and Brad, nail us with the fourth.
Submit.
This is the total dichotomy, people. Fight, flee, posture, or submit. Those are the four dichotomies. Now, let's be real clear. What am I talking about when I say that is the dichotomy? That is the fucking human response.
Yeah.
This is what is hardwired into us as a species, right? We talk lots about our innate survival system. Hardwired into us from birth. 200,000 years of evolution. We're born with it. These instincts are there for us. Again, isn't it crazy, right? Because this is a tangent. Don't let me go on this too long. But most people either have some form of a belief, right? God. So they believe in a higher power in the form of God, nature, or the universe, energy, whatever it is. One of those three areas. But most people just have a sense of something bigger than themselves, right? What are the odds? What are the odds of us being born? I mean, how many, it's millions to one that this sperm hit this egg and we were created. right? We've heard motivational speakers talk about the fact that you're even here, the fact that you're alive is like a fucking miracle in and of itself because the odds are astronomical, but here we are. So my point is this: God, nature, the universe, whatever you believe in, here we are. And you think of all of these amazing things that human beings are capable of. And to think that we were created, we are born, we are here on this planet with all of this amazing potential, and yet we were born with no defensive capabilities, like no innate survival system. Every creature on this planet has some form of survival mechanism inside of them, right? Whether that's coloring. Rabbits, fucking just look out your front door, man. The rabbit in your yard in winter is white to blend in with the snow. And in summer, it's not white anymore. I mean, and of course, there's far more and better and stronger defensive systems, but I just need people to understand, right? We are, as human beings, we're born with an innate survival system. We are hardwired to want to exist. So when we're talking about this dichotomy, people say, it's the fight flight. Your body prepares you to fight or prepares you to flee. Like that's the two options. If that was true, then that means that we, as a society, as human beings, as a species, are living in a kill or be killed society. Because either I'm prepared to fight. So if something became a threat to me, I'd fucking kill it or I would flee. That's all, that'd be my two options. Kill it or fucking flee. So as let's say a young man in his 20s where he's vying for the attention of a woman because of all the mating instincts, which are hardwired into a species because we have to mate to perpetuate, to keep the species alive and all that stuff. And all of a sudden there's a younger man, 2-3 years, and he becomes a threat and he's potentially vying for, I just kill him. Fight or flee, right? And yet we all know we do not exist in a kill or be killed society. And do people think, well, that's because we're civilized? That's how it used to be. But now we're civilized. We have laws and bylaws, and we have a social contract. We have all these different things. That's what prevents us from just simply kill or be killed. Well, that's, again, not true. So fight, flee, posture, and submit. Now let's rank these in terms of order. So when there's even a perceived threat, I'm going to have what they call a SNS mobilization. The sympathetic nervous system, the part of my body, the part of my nervous system that is responsible for my survival, mobilizes all of the body's resources, even if it's just a perceived threat. It could turn out not to be real. If I sense danger on any level, I'm going to have activation from low to high and everything in between. So the second I perceive a threat, is my body literally mobilizing resources so that I can fucking fight or I can flee? No, it's not. Not that alone. So Dustin, you'd said posturing. You added in the third element. So what is posturing?
Posturing is when an individual, like if we're talking about humans, because it applies to animals too, which is maybe a good example we can get into, but posturing is when you are trying to make yourself appear, big, strong, tougher, threatening, whatever word you want to attach to it, but the whole point is to try to intimidate the other person in order to get the desired response you want from them. And it's all done with the purpose of trying to avoid having to fight or potentially having to flee. So it's kind of a instead of option.
Okay. So Brad, throw in, what are the 4 things that posturing is done for? It's a great, perfect definition, 100%. What are the 4 elements that make up posturing?
Yeah, the things that make up posturing are status, profit, display, and damage limitation.
Okay.
And I think damage limitation is ultimately like one of the major ones that is underlining between, of all the others, right?
Well, it's the posturing equals. We posture for damage limitation.
Yeah.
That's the correlation. That's the mathematical formula. And so everything Dustin said, right? Posturing is everything we can do so we can avoid having to fight or having to flee or having to submit, which is the other one. But let's break it down. You posture for status, display, and profit. So status, how does posturing increase my status?
Well, even to go back to the example that you talked about, when we talked about the young man, and it's either fight or flight. It's like you posture to increase your social status. Oh, you're big, you're strong, you're the alpha male, you're appealing to the other gender. You know what I mean? So huge in definitely in social status, and that's, oh, you could protect me, all that sort of thing, right? So it's definitely social status among, obviously social, and among our peers, like in our close circle that we spend time with.
100%. Listen, we posture to have damage limitation. This is the first choice human beings go through, right? We posture. Because listen, we have an end goal. There's an end state. We talk about this all the time. What's the end state you want to create? What's the result? Well, the result is that I don't want to have to fucking fight. I definitely don't want to have to run away, and I don't want to have to fight. So there's this great thing where I can posture. And I can do it for my status. And Brad's talking about the social status. You understand that posturing, we all do this, by the way. Now you can, if, especially when it comes to weaponizing for protection against violence, you have to understand what's going on with this, and you have to learn to use this as a tool. But this is automatic for all of us, right? Like you posture. I want a status within the world, and I don't care how individual people think they are. You have a status. The person that is like, I don't dress like you, I don't conform to you, I don't live my life like you. You're posturing a status. You're just saying my status comes from not being like you. That's my status. Is I'm different. I'm the outcast. I'm the black sheep. I'm the outlier. It's still a status. Like you because the way we dress, right? All you got to do is go to a nightclub and you'll see almost every dude in that bar bored his little brother's t-shirt. It's his shoulder, which is supposed to be here, sits way up here, and the sleeves are tight, and he wants to look jacked up. And guys get tattoos, and guys do their mohawk, whatever that is. And for a lot of people, like, listen, this is my style. There's a decision that is made to say, I'm going to project into the world an image of myself. This is, and for many people, it's a mask, but that's not what we're getting into. But I can go into a bar and go, I want everybody in the room to think I'm the badass. I'm a tough guy. That's my status. And so you dress a certain way. And people will look at you and go, boy, I wouldn't fuck with that guy. Why? Look at the size of his arms. That guy's fucking jacked up. Look, he's ripped up. Oh, look, he's got cauliflower ears. That's why that became a status symbol. There's guys that take plastic water bottles and beat their ears to get cauliflower ears now, and they've never spent even a half an hour on a mat. They don't do jiu-jitsu, but they want the cauliflower ears because everybody goes, that guy's a fucking fighter. That guy's tough. Because that posturing gives us a status. And that status helps create damage limitation. You can go up, somebody can, challenge you, or you're going to talk to a girl, some guy, and you can say, you better fuck off. And you got this status of, cauliflower ears, mohawk, face tattoos, muscles and all this stuff. And people like, that guy's a fighter. That guy looks like he's been in jail. That guy looks like he's murdered 30 people. Yeah, the guy's never got zero training, never spent the guy's not a fighter at all. Doesn't know anything about it. He's never been violent a day in his life. But his presentation, his posturing sends a different message. And for some people, their display is in alignment with who they truly are. Okay, so posturing is the number one and first thing. And when you posture and you have a certain status, you display in accordance with that status. Because again, it fuels damage limitation. So a guy that looks a certain way, a guy doesn't dress in athletic gear and then not try to, show, they try to display symbols of athleticism or athletics. So the status and display can blend together. Because the way someone talks, the vocabulary, what they talk about, how they, physically move or display is in line with the status that they're trying to posture. And then, of course, you say, well, profit. How do people profit from this? Well, we already talked about it a little bit. You can walk into a nightclub and have a $3,000 Hugo Boss suit on and have a $30,000 Rolex on your arm and have the keys to a fucking Lexus or Mercedes or a G-Wagon parked outside, and yet you're absolutely fucking broke. You're maxed out to the credit, you have no real fucking money, but you've got this thing. And guess what? You can profit by that because you'll attract women are like, wow, look, he's financially secure, he's successful, he's rich, he can take all these things. People profit from that. Just like a guy can walk in, exact opposite. Ripped up fucking jeans, holes in his fucking t-shirts, mohawks, scars on his face, cauliflowered ears. You know what I mean? He's all, beat up looking. And people go, that guy's a killer. So depending on what's happening, it's like, yeah, you might have money, but don't fuck with me, I'll kill you. And the easiest thing to get this across, the example we always use is motorcycle gangs. Right? We always use the analogy of you're in a parking lot, you and your kids, you go to walk, you're walking into the grocery store, and this fucking truck rips by doing 80 in the parking lot, just about wipes you and your kid out, goes, screeches his brakes, slams into the fucking parking stall, you know what I mean? And you go from 0 to 100 because you're like, this guy just about killed you. And you're pissed and you walk over there, you're like, I'm gonna give this guy a fucking piece of my mind, if not more. And the guy opens his door and he jumps out and he's 5'2", weighs about fucking 90 pounds, but he's got a vest on and on the back of it says Hell's Angels. You keep walking towards that guy, there might be some, yeah, fuck yeah, I do. Most people go, no. Why? The guy's 5 foot, 90 pounds, fuck all. Almost killed you and your kid. Why do people stop?
For that exact reason of the display and what that means in our social environment, right? That there's a meaning that is attached to the symbol of the Hell's Angels crest or whatever you call
it. They've built an identity and a culture around that symbol that yes. Most people are aware of, and you associate it with like, yeah, these are potentially criminals, these are potentially violent people, they potentially carry guns, you know what I mean? Like it's all of those things right away just instantly come to your mind with just seeing that one symbol, because they've built that culture and identity around that display and that status.
Yeah, they protect their own, right? If you hurt them, then you're gonna have the whole gang at you.
So wearing that vest is a form of posturing. Absolutely. Just like you wear a t-shirt with your favorite band on it. You wear your hairstyle a certain way. You wear a certain type of clothing. You drive a certain type of car. I just want people to understand what posturing is and how deeply integrated it is into the human species. I mean, this is part of us. But this is the number one thing. This is the first thing that happens. When you perceive a threat and stuff, there will be, posturing is like the first thing people tend to want to do. This is what causes escalation. So they posture, just like the example the Hell's Angels, but it's status, it's a display. You can profit from that. I mean, I don't think we need to explain how you profit from that. You profit if you get damage limitation, because let's jump to number 2. How you really profit from good posturing, whether it's conscious or subconscious, when posturing works, it forces people to take the second step, which is submit. Fight, flee, posture, submit. When the posturing is done right, when the posturing is powerful and undeniable, the status, the display, they will profit from that through the damage limitation, through the decision, because the other person submits. Our analogy of in the parking lot, you're walking over, I'm all pissed off, you see that, and all of a sudden you're like, well, fuck, it ain't worth it, we're still alive, and accidents happen. And you're still mad inside, but you walk away because you're like, oh, fuck. Yeah, if I deal with this guy, I'm gonna have a fucking whole gang. I'm gonna wake up one day, turn my ignition, my car is gonna fucking blow up. They're not just gonna kill me, they're gonna murder my fucking family. Like, whatever the symbolism that you attach to it, that posturing is effective, and you submit. And again, people have to understand, submission, we're not talking just masculine, tough guy, pussy. Submitting is part of how we as a species have survived. There is a time to fight. There is a time to, you've heard the saying, right? Pick your battles. Mm-hmm. Pick the battle. Pick the hill that you plant. It's okay. You want to plant your flag on that fucking hill and you're ready to die on that hill? Go ahead and do it. But you pick your fucking battles, because if you try to plant the flag on every fucking hill that you come across, every little thing, okay, and there's no such thing as submission. There's no such thing as letting it go, giving into it, whatever it is. You won't last long.
Well, if you even think about like how, like just the evolution of our species and the animal species, is that It's like if there wasn't any submission or any fleeing, and it was just killing or being killed, there was, like, how do you perpetuate that species, right? So if we did, it's part of our nature. It's part of the our survival mechanism, and it perpetuates our species. Without it, that's why I think it's so odd that it's like the other two haven't been included in this whole dichotomy for such a long time, because it's like it has to be there.
100%. And I'm just going to throw this up there because, sorry, I'm interrupting you, but I like Mac's comment here about like guys dressing up like cowboys for Stampede. There's the posturing, right? Dress like a bull rider, head to the bar, and you don't have to be a bull rider to profit like a bull rider might.
Yeah, all I was going to say is just to expand on Brad's thought, and Greg, you've said this lots, but like if it was truly kill or be killed, then you would as an adult male, you would kill every single male that came up after you,
100%.
Because they would all be a potential threat to your status in that tribe or that community or whatever it is, right? Like you're going to get older, you're going to eventually get weaker, the younger male is going to take you out. Like, so if it was all kill or be killed, like Brad said, the species would never survive.
Yeah,
because you'd have to wipe out all the young, potentially threatening people before they become threats.
100%. You can have a silverback gorilla, and he's got his little tribe there, and then another gorilla, another silverback younger can challenge him, and they will go through a ritualistic battle. Rams button horns. They don't anything else, any other species or any, anything that they perceive to be a threat or an enemy, they would be turning their heads to the side and trying to use their horn to gore in the neck. But when it's within their own kind of community, culture, tribe, they butt heads, and one wins in one, silverback's battle, and one remains the alpha and the other doesn't. And then down the road, and maybe they challenge again, and age catches up, and then that lion, that gorilla, that ram, whatever it is, they are no longer in charge. Maybe they leave the tribe and die, whatever it is, right? Depends on what species we're talking about. But as human beings, we'd have to understand that there's this posturing. So the first choice is to posture submit. Now remember, there are situations and circumstances, context determines content. There is a context where you wouldn't try to posture or submit. You would go right to fight or to flee, potentially. What we're trying to get across to people is that posturing is part of this dichotomy, yet nobody knows it. Everybody's just like, it's fight or flee. Well, this can cause a lot of fucking problems. Because if you go through the posturing or the submission and you're unaware of it, at the end of it, you're like, well, why didn't I just fight or flee? Like, I didn't flee. Why didn't I fight either? What the fuck was going on? And also, strategically, tactically, you're not in control of it. You will viscerally, somebody that's posturing could kick you to submission. And at the end of it, you're like, I use this example, right? You're in the work field and, you're a stand-up individual. You teach people how to treat you. You are not accustomed to allowing people to debase or dehumanize you. Never have been. It's not in your nature, right? That's your personality, all this stuff. Yet, somebody walks into the room, a boss, a peer, somebody walks in, and they fucking berate you. Blah, 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 blah. They're all up to you. They talk shit to you. They talk disrespect to you. They do all this stuff, and you're sitting there, and then they leave. And you're sitting there, and all of a sudden, they're gone, and 30 seconds, 60 seconds later, you're like, what the fuck? Why didn't I say this? Why didn't I do this? What the hell? Like, you are like, what was wrong with me? And the more you think about it, the more angrier you get. Then 5 minutes later, maybe 60 seconds later, maybe a day later, you're still fuming and you go find that person. You son of a bitch, you ever talk to me that way again? And I'm a blah, blah, blah. And you're lucky I didn't this and this and this. But you didn't do it in the moment. Why? Because you got startle response. Because you got blindsided. You got blitzed. And what happened is when they come in hot and heavy like that, you got kicked to submission. You had a mental stall. There's lots of things and lots of reasons why we can get kicked to submission, but you got to understand that submission is part of our species. And again, Stop thinking of it like a guy comes in and you consciously go, oh, don't hurt me, sir. Like, we're not talking submission like most people would think. It's a mental stall. It's like you got to understand the physiology of what happens in violent encounters. And, well, of course nobody understands it because no martial arts teach it. Self-defense programs, when people take their one-day self-defense, I took a couple months of kickboxing or jiu-jitsu, or I did a couple years of jiu-jitsu, nobody sits there and says, okay, what are we talking about today? Today we're going to talk about the physiology of combat. Aren't we going to learn an armbar or something? No. No, we're going to actually learn the science and the neuroscience and the physiology behind combat. Fuck that shit, man. I just want to do that cool armbar shit. When can I learn a flying armbar, flying triangle choke, like Brian T. City Ortega? Like, I want a cool nickname. You know, it's like, I get it, right? But if you don't understand it, then you don't understand what's happening to you. And that's the language of violence. That's what separates this shit. Criminals, violent criminals, study fucking human anatomy. They study psychology. They study physiology. You can watch documentaries. There's guys that go into max security prisons, and when they're connected in there, right, when they get into prisons, some of these shot callers, some of the top guys that are running these prisons that are making life and death decisions in there, they recommend what books people need to read. You need to study human anatomy. You need to read this book on human psychology. You need to read this on human physiology. Like, these people are getting PhDs in how the fucking body, brain, emotion, how our human system, how to weaponize the human system, and here's what you need to fucking study to be efficient on this shit. And it's not saying, here's the first, 30 moves in jiu-jitsu that you should learn. Like, the technique part of it is simple. That's there's a brutally efficient tools that can be taught very, very quickly. But the psychology, and that's what that's what we're trying to share tonight. So you have this posture. That's number one. Status stay, profit for damage limitation. Isn't it much better to get what you want and never even have to do anything? You never risk anything. If I can just get you to submit because you lost the battle mentally before the battle ever happened, why the fuck wouldn't I just do that? That's way easier. Then you submit. Whether you do it consciously or whether I viscerally cause that in you, I cause mental stall in you, get you into submission, I get what I want. So there's posture, submit. And if posturing doesn't work and submission, you can't get the guy to submit or the guy to submit, then the third option is to flee. And that's where you get someone that just fucking like, fuck it. This guy's posturing, escalating up, the threat's real, you're in this submission, I don't know what to do, fuck it, boom, and you bolt. Now, again, flee doesn't always mean running scared. You can make a tactical decision to remove yourself from that situation. That's flee.
Yeah, I have an example of exactly that, Greg.
Perfect.
Just to kind of elaborate on even just the concept of submitting and that not always being a sign of weakness. And also, like you started to talk about where it becomes a choice. If you don't understand the full dichotomy, then it's not a choice. You may end up submitting to someone who's posturing, but like you said, you don't even know why. You're just doing it, but you're going to have that feeling of being out of control. But when you understand the full dichotomy, you understand there's 4 different choices. Well, control follows awareness. You can actually start to choose when to, fight or flee or maybe posture, and definitely when to submit. And like, just as an example, I was sitting here thinking, I'm like, if I'm standing in a 7-Eleven with my 2 kids at the cash register about to pay, let's say, guy walks in the door, pulls out a gun, points it at the cashier, says, empty the register, points the gun at me and says, give me your fucking wallet. What am I going to do? I'm going to take my wallet out, be like, yeah, here, absolutely. And I'm going to throw it, 10 feet over on the floor. So he goes to pick it up. I grab my kids. We're out the door. We're gone. Did I submit? 100% I did. By choice, by design. It's a strategy.
Yeah.
But you can't control that. You can't choose that if you don't even understand that it's an option kind of in your arsenal, right? So I think that just helps to kind of show that it's not a sign of weakness. It's nothing like that. It's absolutely just a strategy, and you can choose to do it when it's most appropriate.
100%. Matter of fact, because of what you just said, is a great analogy and story, but I'll put this in there because Mac just said submission to some level is advantageous, exactly like you just talked about, because cooperation and teamwork beats even the toughest individual. And so that, again, it's like a serial killer has a ruse. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'll have a ruse. I'll have a ruse to get close to you. I'll have a ruse to make you come close to me. I'll have a ruse to get you to turn, to disarm you, to get your shields down, to get you vulnerable, so that I have as close to a guaranteed success rate as possible when I do launch my assault. And then the other comment Mac made, which is, again, really good, is it's hard to understand the bad guy blueprints if you can't even see what's happening before the physical attack starts, which is what we're talking about. So that's like jumping in to watch a movie when it's almost at the end and you have no idea what's going on. Great analogy with that. And it's 100% why we're trying to educate people on this tonight. So you have this posture, then this submit, and then the choice to flee. And again, whether that all of this could be happening to you subconsciously, viscerally, or it could be happening to you tactically. You could be using it as strategies and tactics to do whatever you need to do. And then the final choice is the fight. And again, you can then choose to fight. Now, let's just be real clear. Context determines content. Is there a context where the content that is needed is to go straight to fight? Yes. Is there a context where the content that is needed is to posture, tactically posture? Yes. Context, is there content to submit? Yes, you just gave us an example of that. To flee? Yes. It's yes to all of it, but our goal is this. It's the fight-flight system. It's again just like, it's like, let me see, imagine like someplace like Rogers. Like imagine a Coliseum, a giant stadium. And they're going to have a concert in there and they're going to fill it to capacity. So if it's an indoor, thing, it's maybe 20, 25,000 people. If it's an outdoor event, like an outdoor, like Commonwealth or something like that, 60, 70,000 people in the States, someplace bigger. And they're going to have this fucking thing packed for this rally or for a concert or whatever it is. Now, as a fire marshal, would you go in there and say, can I see your emergency contingency? Can I see your emergency plans? Like, what happens if we have a fire? What happens if upper decks collapse? What happens if we have a storm, a fucking tornado, heavy rains, whatever it is? What's our evacuation plan? What are our protocols? You get what I mean, right? If you don't understand, understanding that it's fight, flight, posture, submit, and understanding how each of these things works inside of us and how each of these things can be used strategically and tactically, right? You can be in control of all of this stuff. You can create, the context of the situation, you have so much more freedom in your content because you can posture and use that to move them or distract them or set them up for the fight. So that you reverse them. They're trying to ambush you and blitz you. There's a little bit of posturing that goes on. Maybe it's submission, whatever it is. And then all of a sudden you flip the scale and you ambush them. Like this is the whole thing of unconventional warfare. Not conventional warfare. Let's fucking go. You know what I mean? Like you want to, it's like, let's just fucking fight. And we'll use martial arts. We'll use fighting techniques. And it's like... Man, when are you going to start to understand the shit's chess, not checkers? It's chess, not checkers, man. Okay? So, let me just pull back a little bit because I think we hopefully have at least people understanding that part of it. But I also start off with saying the fucking warning. Do you fucking know who I am, motherfucker? You don't want to fuck with me. You don't want to fucking start. Walk away, motherfucker. If you knew what was good for you right now, you'd fucking walk away. Why are people warning? Now, pause here, cut to Brad, and Brad, why don't you share a little bit of that story with us?
Yeah. So let me just set up real quick. It's probably, I don't know, mid-morning, like 10:30 in the morning or something like that, maybe 11, right, just before lunchtime. And so what it was, I was working with a guy, and there was another guy that was on site, right? And now I don't know the full backstory between these two individuals, but I don't think that they really got along. I think the one guy that started to escalate up, I think that he caught wind that this other guy said something about his character or something like that. That
disrespected
some exactly, right? So what happened is he had a Zoom boom on site, and these guys were coming to do other work. They were trenching into the services into the house and stuff like that. And these guys tried to they drug his Zoom boom through the mud, right? So a couple things happened. So we get in there, we start talking to the guy, and he's like, "Well, who's moving my machine?" And I was like, "Oh, well, these guys," and I've never met this guy before. I'm like, "Well, these guys did it this morning." And I'm like, they obviously were doing that to get access to run their train. And he starts getting agitated. He's like, "Think you'd call a fucking guy and blah, 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 this, that, and the next thing." He's like, the tire's flat. I'm like, well, your tire was flat because I saw it last week. I'm like, so it's been like that for a while. And they're, oh, I could have ripped off the tire. And this guy's just getting really pissed off, right? So, I'm like, he's not in trigger phase. Like, he's already in the escalation phase. Just how he is moving, his physiology, and just you could tell that this guy is chronic, right? When I even first saw him, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't want to be working with this guy. Do you know what I mean? And then as the conversation went on, he started being like, when am I getting fucking paid? All the back work, like they hold a little bit of funds until like some of the deficiencies need to be cleaned up. And then the guy I was kind of working with is like, well, I don't know. I'm not going to argue with you. That's not my department. You got to talk to so-and-so. And I'm just like, like I get it. But the way you said that fucking dictated how this is going to go down, right? Because it was kind of came out of well, I'm not going to fucking argue with you. That's not my department. You know what I mean? That type of tone. And I'm just like, well, this guy's here. The camera, he's up here escalating. And then you fucking put that in there, right? And then they start talking about when people should be getting fucking paid in the industry, but arguing about it. And I'm just like, all right, okay, well, this is like, anyway. And then what happens is the context of the backstory of why these two individuals may not really like each other kind of came to the forefront, right? And the guy fucking went off. I'll fucking kill you. You fucking said this about me and blah, blah, blah and all this. And then the other guy I was with, he's like, man, you don't want to pick a fight with me. And I'm just like, I'm like, you're just, there's a fire and you got your little fucking lighter fluid and you keep squeezing it onto this fire, right? And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And then, but this guy's swearing at this guy and I'm going to fucking kill you and you fucking talk shit like blah, blah, blah. And just all the typical stuff. And I could tell where he is on the aggression continuum because I could understand the signs and in and out of space and physical displays of me being able to do damage to you. Like all this type of shit happened. We end up going into the property, into the house, and you could hear this guy fucking still yelling and screaming and all this stuff to the guy inside. But then the guy inside gets to a point where he's like, well, I'm not going to take this anymore. And he's about to walk out the door. And then I said, listen, man, I'm like, you going out there right now, no good's going to come from that. I'm like, let him save face. You're a fucking asshole. Take it. He's going to save face and this guy's going to leave, right? If you go out there and you start defending yourself, I'm like, this is going to turn physical. Like, just do fucking nothing. Let this guy call you a name, save face. And that's exactly what happened, right? He saved face, packed up his shit, and was out of there. But, one of the things that I picked up on a lot about where that guy was, is like communication was breaking down. This guy was at the point where I could hear it in his voice, where it was emotional. So whatever their backstory was, I don't know fully what it was, but it was emotional where this man was almost in tears. Like that's how, like his communication was breaking down, but the emotions, I could almost feel them coming out of this man. Right. So, it was one of those things where you're watching from the outside and we understand that violence and aggression follows a linear path, and it could have easily escalated to physical assault. And when the guy's like, well, you don't want to pick a fight with me, and I'm just like, yeah, I don't think that this guy wants to fight you. There's more to what's going on here. Like this guy, if he comes and this goes into crisis and this goes physical, this is going to be an assault. So again, not knowing what's in front of you, I'm just like, this is very interesting to watch as a kind of a bystander, but I'm just like, it could have easily been de-escalated very, very early. Mm-hmm. But where the guy was talking about, I don't fucking know, I'm not the one that pays the bills, that type of stuff, was like, that is where everything really started to turn, because he did that in a manner of, posturing, right?
Yeah.
He wasn't doing it in a way like, well, I'll fucking whoop your ass, but it was like his posturing, like, no, like, you're the worker. I don't know. I'm the foreman type guy, and like, you just go talk to the other guy. Like, it was just he did it in a way I'm like, kind of perpetuated this, but you don't know what you don't know. Like, he had no idea. So, fortunately, nothing physical came from the situation, but could have very, 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 very easily turned into.
Yeah, 100%. Let's break it down a little bit, right? Because, I mean, it's not what we're talking about tonight, but the whole idea is like there's 7 to 10 things that you never say to somebody in an argument, like when you're dealing with difficult people, and one of the things is not my problem. This isn't my problem. Like, I'm not the person to pay the bills. That you never say that. You never tell people to fucking calm down. You never tell people to fucking relax.
Yeah.
So all of these things, of course, they have no training in this. So of course they're going to do things. Everyone's on the posturing, right? That's the first thing is the posture. So the way the guy said it, his tone, right? Remember, it's not what you say, it's how you fucking say it. So it doesn't matter what he said, it's how he said it, and how he said it was the form of posturing. Trying to get some status display, we're butting heads, you're this, you can't talk to me, I don't want to blah, blah, blah. And so you got these two people that are posturing up, and they escalate up, and then the guy comes to the part that we're talking about, which is the fucking warning. You don't want to pick a fucking fight with me. Why would you say that? If you truly felt like your life was in jeopardy, if you felt like this guy is a risk, remove yourself from the situation. But if you're not removing yourself from the situation, have the communication skills, the training to de-escalate or deter, which again, they didn't have. But the idea that you would say to somebody that is potentially a threat to you and say, hey, you don't want to fucking pick a fight with me. Why the warning? Because it's posturing. Because what you're hoping for, subconsciously even, is to get the damage limitation. Right? The in and out, all the stuff you talk, the body language, in and out, hitting things, making noise. I mean, we've talked about this in the podcast, and we can, go specific into this. This is part of what we call the PIN index. And you have to understand body language, behavior, and interpersonal communication. There are pre-incident indicators, tools that you can use to measure to tell where they are on the thermometer. Trigger, escalation, crisis. So all of that stuff that you're talking about, and what's just interesting to me that we need to put into the context of this situation, of this podcast, is how the posture. And now, like you said, had the guy gone back inside, he comes inside, the guy's outside still posturing. Why? Because like you said, he felt disrespected. People have to understand something, right? Human nature, people want two things. They want to be heard and they want to be understood. Right? They don't give a fuck if you agree with them. They don't give a fuck if you give them what they want or what they don't want, so long as they feel heard and they feel understood. Because when you're heard and when you're understood, you have respect. And when you are not heard and not understood, at least when you feel that way, then you are disrespected. And many, many times, people subconsciously, without intention, disrespect somebody by not allowing them to feel heard and understood, and that causes conflict. That'll cause escalation. So in this situation, the guy could, he's outside and he's still spouting off, doing whatever, because he's trying to get back some respect. Like you said, save face. Now, if this guy had gone back outside, what would have happened? Well, just more posturing would have happened. The guy would have escalated up, blah, 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 fuck you, fuck you. He would have escalated up. The guy's having an emotional, it's all expressing out. They're having posturing. And this is the point when I get it would have come to a point where if both guys are posturing and now you hit the threshold of escalation, the next step up is crisis, which is when you cross that, we call it the PNR, the point of no return, the point it becomes physical. So these guys there would have been nothing but air and opportunity for these guys to posture up, hit the ceiling like you felt they were already that one guy's pretty much at the ceiling. All the signs are there. He's at the threshold. The other guy goes out. They're going to posture a little bit more, recognizing no one's going to submit. No one's fleeing. No one's submitting. So now we have a decision to make, and it's a subconscious thing, human nature. Now do we cross to the crisis? And what I want to talk about with this is the difference in these types of antisocial aggression type situations is that even if that guy would have got so emotional, he hit the ground, and all of a sudden he goes physical. He grabs the guy, goes to punch the guy, does whatever he does. Now he's probably at this point condition black. Meaning you got to understand, people when they're losing verbal communication skills, when they are losing control of their physiology, when all of this, the physiological changes are spiraling out of control, they have no blood in the forebrain. Meaning they're not thinking of future consequence. They're not like, well, geez, what's he going to do? Because if he does that, I'll sue him. He'll get fired. He'll lose his contract with the all that. They're not able to think because the brain, that part of the brain, is literally devoid of blood. It's inoperable at that moment. That's what we call it condition black. They're basically blacked out. Okay, they're at gross motor motions. But what's even funny in that is even if he would have crossed into the physical, it would have gone one of two ways. It would have been a guy who somewhere subconsciously, deep in the subconscious, would have been ineffectively attacking somebody else. Because that also can take on a form of damage limitation. I've seen guys that have pipes in their hands and they hit the same level you're talking about, and all of a sudden the guy, posture, no one's going to submit. There's no one to break them up. There's no way to remove. They sit, so they have to do something. They're forced to the next level, and the guy takes the lead pipe, has a clear shot at the other guy's fucking skull, and he winds up and he swings for the head, and at the last second he comes down and nails the guy in the shoulder. Now, and then he starts beating him on the body. And it's like, why did he do that? Because he wasn't fully 100% invested in homicide, in murder. He hadn't crossed into the Omega. He wasn't that, there's a resistance there. Now somebody could easily flip the switch and go right for the fucking head. And that's the difference in predisposition, belief systems, previous experience, all of these different factors. How do we know? Well, we don't really. But it's funny how sometimes even when people cross into a physical engagement, there are still signs of attempted damage limitation, subconscious or conscious. It's like, I'll hit you with the pipe, but I'm not going to hit you in the fucking head. I'll smash you with the bottle, but I'm not going to stab it in your throat or your eye, or you know what I mean? Like, or it could go. So there's layers is all I want people to understand. Sometimes you see two people physically fighting, and there's 150 punches thrown and 1.5 land. It's two Tasmanian devils spinning around, and at the end of it, everybody's fucking fine. It's like you're in a gunfight from 4 feet away, and 50 rounds are shot off, and nobody's hit. It's like, how the fuck did that happen? Well, nobody was really invested. Or you could have one guy with one bullet, straight between the head, execution style from behind, whatever it is, and you're done. So even within the physical act of people fighting, there can be posturing. And that's why we're talking the difference, and we always want people to understand the context versus the content, meaning the context of antisocial aggression versus asocial violence. It's about intent. Just like we have in our legal system, there's premeditated murder, and then there's murder. First and second degree. Was it premeditated? Was it spontaneous? What was the cause of this? They'll look at that, and that factors into the legal aspects of that case, of those charges. So again, the picture tonight is talking about I started off by the warning, because it is, I think most people that would watch this have witnessed a warning, or they have given a warning. They've had someone give them a warning. A client of ours, one of our our former instructors. This is before he was an instructor. This is a long time ago when he first started training. But he had a situation where he was very young and he was working at a restaurant, and this lady and this guy came in, and he was serving them, and they were super belligerent, very racist towards him, and he, dealt with this whatever, but it was ultimately the manager that came over and kicked her out. Wasn't of course he was there because he was waiting on the table, but the management asked him to leave because she was being, hurling racial slurs to the entire restaurant, being belligerent, all this stuff. And as she was being kicked out, she kept looking at him going, "You have no fucking idea who I am. You have no idea, but you're going to fucking find out. If you knew who I was, you're fucking dead. You have no idea who I am." And this went on for like 10 minutes where she just kept saying, "You have no idea who I am. If you knew who I was, you're fucking dead." All these threats. And, they left. And the next day he shows up for his shift. They're not even open yet. He's setting up. And, the doors weren't locked. Other staff was coming in. And he sat at a table and he looks out in the parking lot and he sees his car pull in and he sees this lady get out. And behind her is 3 big dudes. And she's screaming and yelling and blah, 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 and looking through the window and pointing. So he sees this. And, they come walking in. And as, you know, they open the door, she's back. One guy, two guy, three guy come in like fucking ducks in a row, walking through the door, and she's not even through the door yelling, "Now you're going to find out who the fuck I am. I told you you're fucking dead." And, you know, because he had all the stuff, right? But the warning, before I finish the story, the warning of, you know, him was the posture. But at the same time, he understood because of the training that people can be posturing, or then people, you know, and anyways, these three guys come in, because this is the part that gets good. But he sees them coming in, knows exactly the writing's on the wall. This is what it is. This is the imminent threat. They're not coming back to give him a tip because they forgot to tip him the other day. So he literally uses forward pressure, does a smash and grab, takes guy one out, takes guy two out, which takes guy. I mean, he's literally three dominoes hit, go slamming into each other on the floor. He relays just enough destruction that none of the three are. The first guy ain't getting up. The second guy's not getting up because he got pinballed between the two guys. And the third guy on the ground, he kind of rolls up from the bottom of the pile. She's sitting there with like a fucked up look on her face, like, what the fuck just happened? And the third guy gets up and starts going, "What is your problem, man? Like, we just wanted to talk to you. Like, what? You can't just go around hitting people." And instantaneously goes to what? Submission. Why? But let's break the story down. What happened? She's posturing. But then she comes back the next day, which says, "Well, I'm not posturing. I was fucking dead serious." But are they coming in, three guys? Are they going to posture to go, here's the big display to reinforce her status? Because yesterday you should have known who she was, but you didn't. So her status wasn't enough to profit from. So she came back with a display. Now, how do you know it was a display? But when he saw it coming in, he had every legal right. That's like, what do I think this is? Well, I think this is them coming back to kill me. She told me they were going to kill me. And now she's back with not one guy, not two guys, but three guys, and guys that are infinite. Like this guy was 140, our guy was 147 pounds. These guys were all over 6 feet and all over 200 pounds. You don't bring 600, almost 700 plus pounds of muscle to, you know what I mean? So his brain is like, they're here to kill me. Fuck it. I'm legally and morally justified in defending my life, which I will do. I am trained to do. And so I shall do that. And takes them out. They line up like ducks and blah, blah, blah. But the third guy goes to submission. So what was it? Most likely, what were they coming back for? At least the third guy. They were coming back to posture.
Yeah.
They wanted damage limitation. Now, maybe the first guy was the mouth. Maybe the first guy was the guy that was real. Maybe he was the trigger guy. Now, I'm not talking firearm, but you get what I mean? Maybe he was the guy that was like, I'll fuck this kid up. I don't give a shit. Maybe it was the second guy. Maybe it was both the first two guys. But the third guy, he wasn't the trigger guy. That's why he was also third through the door. But the point is, the second, see what happened? They came in going, we're going to fucking ambush this guy. We're going to blitz this guy. We're going to overwhelm, overpower, outnumber, out-equip, out-position this motherfucker. And we're going to, now, whether they were just going to posture, but they're going, we're going to come in so high, this guy's going to be crying, he's going to be terrified for his life. We're going to regain our status with this powerful display, and there'll be damage. Oh, it's going to work out perfect. But the second that they got intercepted, what did it kick them into? What did it kick? Well, the other two guys weren't conscious, so we don't know what it kicked them to. What was the third guy get kicked to? Submission.
Yeah.
What's your problem? You can't go around doing that to people.
He went right to damage limitation for himself.
You went 100%.
Well, they had a plan. That plan didn't survive.
They had a blueprint. Let's tie this in. This is why we're always teaching blueprints. They had a blueprint that I guarantee, this wasn't their first time trying out this blueprint. That's how they knew to bring 3. Not 2, not 1, 3. Because they've done this shit before. You think this was her first time uttering those threats, posturing, building status? You should know who I am. And in her circle, in her network, people probably do know who she is. And therefore it works. She doesn't need the 3 guys. Because she's built the status, much like the biker gangs we talked about. But in this case, now we got to go in there and build this. But they ran into somebody who was weaponized, trained, and understood blueprints. And said, there's a legitimate, like, for me, it's reasonable for me to assume in this moment in time that I'm facing grievous bodily harm or death. I mean, when someone tells you they're going to fucking murder you, and they're telling you that I have the skills, I have the capability, I have the connections to have you fucking killed. I will be back. You will fucking pay with your life. Let's take them at word. Let's maybe I'll believe them.
And when they come back the second day,
And then they come back the next day.
Before you're open.
yeah, that's premeditated at that point. So you have even more reason to believe what she said.
All
That's not
indicators.
caught up in the moment,
Yes.
emotionally freaking out because you got kicked out of a restaurant, saying it, now it escalates. You came back 24 hours, whatever it is, later.
Yes.
That's premeditated. That's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's super dangerous.
The survivable value lies in assuming that at this point, they are there to carry out on the threat that they have issued. And looking at them, do they have the size? Do they have the capability? Do they have the intent? Yes. Like all the indicators. So he did the exact right thing, justified. And the best part is that he could create his John Wick moment for himself. And this is the thing that we love, right? This is what weaponizing does. It allows you to create your John Wick moment. They looked at this kid and go, what is he? At the time, like 19 years old, 147 pounds soaking wet. And looked at him and thought, we're going to bring 3 guys all over 6 feet, all over 200 plus pounds. But the thing was, he didn't have to fight these guys. He didn't create a scenario where he had to fight these guys. What he did was recognize the blueprint. And he ambushed them. He countered their blueprint. This is what weaponizing is. And again, to tie it into what we've been talking about, is it kicked that guy because that guy was so pattern interrupted, so blueprint broken, that he couldn't posture, he couldn't get to fight, he couldn't flee, so he kicked him viscerally to submit. And then, of course, the police showed up, but he had dragged the 2 other guys out, stumbly and bumbly, got dragged out to the car. And, lady never said a fucking word, and they left. By the time the police got there, he filed a report, nothing ever came of it. And they were like, good for you. Good for you. Yeah, if we find him, we'll follow up. And they never did, so. Anyways, this is some of the power of understanding the posture, the true dichotomy of the fight, flight, posture, and submit, why people issue warnings. People will do it subconsciously. They will do it because it's an attempted at damage limitation. I was going to go into, there's lots of different studies on warrior tribes around the world. And when these warrior tribes fight, they'll have many times, they'll absolutely have times of true battle where lives are taken and lost, but they have many times, more times, where they will have conflict and they will engage in very physically aggressive acts, but there's no fatalities and nobody loses their life. They become feats of posturing, and it's just very well documented throughout the world of these types of situations happening, because that is the dichotomy that drives us as human beings. And if you don't understand it, if you've never heard of it, more importantly, knowledge is not power. Knowledge is a basis, but it's only once the knowledge becomes actionable. So it's actionable knowledge, functional knowledge. That means that this knowledge that we have just shared with people has to be built into your training. You have to train, kickboxers hold a focus mitt or kick a heavy bag and they kick it and they kick it. You can't just do that. Like when you're working your tools for weaponizing, for violence, you have to integrate the drills so that they elicit the fight, flight, posture, submit dichotomy, so that you've experienced this. There has to be a stimulus in your training. That's why we use scenario training and all kinds of different training methodologies that allow us to get the body to experience posturing viscerally. Where also you got a guy posturing. And that guy's like, holy shit, why the fuck why would I say that? I never would in a million years thought I would ever say that. Well, because we elicited it. We fed you a scenario in a way. We came at you. We used our words, our tone, our physiology, our physicality. We used those things to trigger you into a posturing, or to trigger you into submission, or to trigger you into flee, or to trigger you into fight. But we did it in a way where you had no control over it. It was visceral. That's dangerous. But now we're going to show you, now that you've experienced these things, you understand this stuff, we're going to show you how all of a sudden you get flipped to submission. And you go, oh, fuck. That's what happened. Like, this is normal. It's no big deal. I'm not fucked up. I'm not a pussy. It just happened. But I don't want that. I'm going to shift gears. and I'm going to tactically, strategically, in full control of my mind, my emotions, my physiology, my physical actions, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z. I'm going to fight, I'm going to flee, I'm going to posture, I'm going to do whatever I need to do. Control can only ever follow awareness. That has to be integrated in your training. And again, it's where a lot of people watch this have to be honest. My training doesn't do that. My jiu-jitsu clubs don't do that. Thai boxing gyms don't do that. College gyms don't do that. Like, you know, and you think I love how everybody thinks one of these days we're going to do a podcast on byproduct or osmosis or something like that. Because it's like people are like, oh yeah, but you know, if you hang around and you train, you learn the lifestyle, you learn the code, you learn, you know, eventually you get the wisdom. You get what I mean? Of like, you learn the core beliefs, the spiritualism, this shit, like, that's the discipline of just training. We've had lots of people tell me, like, remember that one guy we had, this is a pure tangent, I'm having a conversation with you guys right now. We had one guy that commented on us that was, kept saying like he was so fucking mad at me because not only was I teaching people physically how to defend themselves from violence, but I was coaching people psychologically, emotionally. We were talking beliefs, and remember how pissed off he was and how he's like, you can't do that. You can't integrate. You can't do that. And yet he trained, and he's like, no, good training. You just train physically, and all the other stuff just happens as a byproduct. And it's like, even if that was true, it takes 100 times longer for that to actually happen. And B, some people don't get the fucking memo. They miss it. Like, I grew up in the era where, like, when you needed more focus, your coach just yelled at you, hey, dipshit, focus fucking harder. And you're like, okay. But you're like, if I could focus harder, I would have. Like, why don't you teach me focus? How can I go home and work focus? It's like, hey, motherfucker, why didn't you pull the trigger on that? Why didn't you, when I tell you to throw an elbow, I tell you to fucking gouge eyes, or I tell you to do this, you got to do this with the killer instinct. How do I develop killer instinct, coach? I was the victim of just fucking, you either got it or you don't. You get some fucking grit in your belly. Grab some fucking balls. And it's like, oh, like, that's the era I grew up in. And luckily, I also grew up in the era where they started going, that's stupid. We understand more about human psychology and human development and how the human mind works. We can now, I can teach you how to throw an elbow as easily as I can teach you how to develop killer instinct. As easy as I can teach you how to develop your focus. You know what I mean? Like how to take control over your physiology, how to regulate, how to control your posturing, or how to control submission, or how to control the fight or flee, how to do these things strategically and tactically. Like this shit is easy now. There's systems for it. But most people in the self-defense world are still not teaching it because they're teaching what used to be taught. You know what I mean? Most people are not at the vanguard. What's the desire? What's that?
Hence why everybody still says fight or flight.
100%. And that's why you see, look at YouTube or what's it, fucking Instagram, whatever it is. You just videos of everybody doing the same shit. We talked about this the other day. Everyone's training the same way. Everyone's doing the same combinations. Here's how you train on the heavy bag. No shit. Nobody's showing videos of this stuff. Like, nobody's talking about this stuff because people are like, I don't need this for my business. Like, I'm just teaching. People come in for fitness and recreation, and we throw them in a ring every now and then, and they do competing. We don't need this shit.
So we kind of covered this earlier in the podcast, but I saw a video today, and it was a 12-year-old kid walked in. The video starts, 12-year-old kid's in the convenience store. He's second in line.
Yeah. He
waited for the person in front of him to pay for their shit and leave. Waited his turn, gets up to the till, pulls out a gun, tells lady money in the bag, and she's like, "What?
Are you for real?
Like, are you serious? Or are you for real?" And he takes the gun, he points up in the corner, and he fires off a shot. Yeah. And she's like, "Oh, okay." And so she goes in the safe, grabs the money, gives it to him. Yeah. He takes it and he leaves. And it's like, well, if that's not posturing, like, what is it? If it's fight or flight, what is it? Yeah. That kid should just put a bullet in her, went around the counter, grabbed the money, and left. Yeah. That's fight or flight. Yeah. That's not what happens. No. You almost never see that, thankfully.
Did you see him when he pulled the trigger on that gun? This is also a
Not
kid
really.
who had a blueprint that has never done anything physical because he got the gun. Are you serious? And he puts it up in the thing and he pulls the fucking trigger and he almost dropped the gun and he scared the fucking shit out of himself. If you watch his physiology, he was fucking almost shit his pants. And then he tried to recover it and then he was fucking with the slide because I don't think it racked right or he didn't know if it racked right. And he was playing with the gun and the guy behind him could have fucking wiped him out right then and there when he realized that A, he was fucking complete startle response, and then B, he was trying to go like, do I have to recock? He didn't know fucking shit about
I think that's the thing is he had no idea how it even worked.
No, fuck. He sees
Right.
TVs and it was like, yeah, I'll just, because even when she had, are you serious? He was like, shoot, like, how do I prove? And just shot the gun because the loud noise, the bang, I'll fire a bullet off.
But what's super interesting about it, and I think why it's important that it was a 12-year-old kid,
Yeah,
because even a 12-year-old kid understands posturing.
100%.
Like he doesn't know he's posturing, but he's posturing.
Yeah.
And that just proves again it's built into our human nature to posture first most times rather than go straight to fight or flight.
You know what's, I'm so glad that you brought this up because let's try to add some like functionalism to our conversation tonight. Why is this important? You're in that store. Whether that's the 12-year-old kid or whether that's a 55-year-old man, but he does the same things that the 12-year-old kid did, right? Ladies, are you fucking serious? Takes that gun, aims it up in a very like uncertain manner, pulls that trigger, startle responses himself. Like just about, but he did a pretty good job of suppressing that. Like you watch it, he was scared, but he poker faced it not bad. And then he was fucking with the rack and the gun. Why is it important to understand? Like I see that clearly. Like he was startle response because that's my window of opportunity. If I'm in there with my child, I want to get her the fuck out of there. If I'm in there with my wife, I want to get them the fuck out of there. Like I want them. My first priority is to keep my family safe. Now the other side of it is if I felt like there was other indicators or some other thing and other people in danger in that startled moment that he was in, if you recognize that, the posturing, this guy's not in a fight mode, this guy's in a posture mode, and then he fucking startled himself. That moment is a moment where it is really safe. It's probably as safe as you're going to get if you have the training and understand what to do to take control of him. To put him on the ground or, and I mean, in whatever way you need to. And the guy had a gun. So whether he's in posture or not, but you could have put him because there's other people in there. And a fucking ricochet, unintentional discharge. When he went to rack that thing, he could have fucking, he could have accidentally, he's like, did it rack? He didn't know that it racked. He repulls the trigger. A million things could go wrong. And depending on the context and situationally being there, what are your priorities? What are your skill sets? Sometimes it's better to remove yourself and be a great fucking witness. Take a description of the kid, which way he maybe goes from a safe thing, call 911, get medical, get police on the way. Sometimes that's the greatest thing to do. Other times, physically might be the thing that has survivable value that saves lives. So I'm not saying what anyone should do, but I'm saying that if you understand what we're talking about tonight, posturing's part of it. Understand the physiology to that. Body language, behavior, I could read his body language. It scared the shit out of him. That's a moment. And people might say, well, fuck you. I watched that video again after listening to this. He was startled for a fraction of a second. Yeah, motherfucker. Violence is won or lost with fractions of fucking seconds and fractions of inches. It's a pretty, you better buy some lottery tickets or say a few prayers to somebody if you got a guy that startles and you get giant gaps that are 30, 40 seconds, minute long that give you time to process. You know what I mean? We're talking violence, not Hollywood. But that's why you train and study and understand this stuff because it's visceral.
And without the training, you'd never see it.
You're never going to find. I have guys. It's so funny. I got guys. There's a friend of mine lives in Vegas, and he used to send me all the time. He'd send me videos. He goes, "Oh man, look at this. There's this fight, this assault, this thing happened, this." And 99% of them, I'd watch it in a matter of 3 seconds. Go, this is fake. And he's saying, no, it's fucking real. It's a CCTV footage. I'm like, no, it's not. It's fucking fake. Look at this. Look at the way they're talking. Look at the physiology doesn't match with what they're doing. The language doesn't match with where they're at. It's fucking wrong, man. Something's wrong with this. And then we'd find out like 3-4 months later, he goes, I saw that clip in a movie. It's like, yeah, someone took it out as this and it was movie. Like it would always, it's fake. But I'm like, how do you keep falling for this shit? Because it was like something that one was this guy, real tough guy, he's knocking people out. And then this guy jumps out and he does all these capoeira moves and does this. I'm like, this is so fake, dude. And it turns out it was out of a movie. And he's like, I fucking thought that, because people want that to be true. If I train in this martial art, that's what I'm going to look like in a fight. And it's like, that ain't real. Like, that is just so not real. The physiology, the body language, the behavior, the interpersonal communication, the fight, flight, posture, submit, it doesn't add up. And you see it. You develop an educated eye. And that educated eye is what saves you far more than an elbow or a knife or a gun or fucking triangle choke or a shrimp or any of that other physical stuff. It is strategy, tactics, tools. Tools are important, but tools are easy. They're the simplest part of the equation. Strategy and the tactics develop the educated eye, the weaponized mind, physiology, body, and then you learn, and then the physical. It's all integrated, right? So, anyways. All right, guys. I'm going to see if we just got another comment. Shannon, I'm just going to throw it up here and read it. Pin 1, a woman who threatened me brings, 3 henchmen the next day with her, and not for a takeout order pickup. Yeah. This is before takeout order pickups, really, like the COVID stuff, but 100%. You know, in that story, it was pretty easy to see what they were going to do. And even if it was posturing, the action-reaction dichotomy, you do not have to wait when those types of pins are being presented. It is reasonable for you to assume that they were there to execute on the threats that were issued the day before. Reasonable. And that's all we need to be legally and morally justified. So, anyways. All right, gents, any final thoughts on this conversation? We're going to call it the warning, right? The true fight-flight dichotomy. Fight, flight, posture, submit. Any final thoughts?
No, none for me. Good.
No, all good.
All right, guys. Okay, everybody, listen, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Really appreciate it. Hope you guys found some value in this. As always, please like, comment, share. It is how we are growing our organization. It is how we are fulfilling our mission, which is to weaponize more good men and women in this world. We need it now more than ever. And please remember that we have a 90-day virtual intensive, can be done from anywhere in the world. It is so much more than just a remote or video training. There is video, there's on-demand training, there's live coaching. We have such an amazing offer going right now. This month of June, I'm a little delayed in my kickoff of it, but it's going to start up here next week. And just really promoting this amazing offer of getting 90 days, 3 full months of on-demand training, tier 1 coaching package. We got so many great things with it. This is the time now. Start now. By the end of summer, you've weaponized. You've got a foundation. We're going to change the fucking game for you and your family, safety, confidence, and certainty. It is an amazing program. Head to our website to check it out. The 90-day virtual intensive. Learn to protect yourself, family, and property from violent criminal assault. So listen, check it out. Don't forget, head over to wherever you like to get your favorite podcast and subscribe, and please rate. That is how we get more listeners. We are starting to get some traction with this podcast. It is because of the people that are listening are rating and commenting. That is the secret here. You're sharing, you're engaging with us, and we just deeply appreciate it. So don't forget, check out our website. Awaken's at the bottom of the screen here in our new overlay. So hopefully everyone likes the overlay. But awakentheprotector.ca. That is it. All right, everybody, please stay safe, stay weaponized, and we will chat again soon. Hey, thanks so much for listening. And listen, if you found this content valuable, here's 3 different ways that I can help you weaponize for free. First, grab a free copy of my ebook, The Education of a Weaponized Man. To get your free copy today, head to ebook.awakentheprotector.ca. Number 2, you can take a free workshop where you will discover the 10 insights violent criminals don't want you to know. To take this workshop, head to workshop.awakentheprotector.ca. The third way is to head to my website and check out all of my freeline programs that cover everything from mindset to strategies. To check us out, go to awakentheprotector.ca. And finally, leave a 5-star review so that we can reach more good people like you who are ready to weaponize and rise regardless.